Hi, I'm Ryan Dalgliesh. Let's talk Bible. Today's topic, understanding the context of 1 Corinthians 10:31. 1 Corinthians 10:31 says, "Now whether you eat or you drink or whatever you do it all for the glory of God." And certainly I myself and other preachers have used this verse to say, hey, look, if you're a teacher, if you're an artist, if you're a student, if you're a parent, whatever your job is, whatever your vocation is, whatever your life looks like, do it all for the glory of God. And while it's not wrong to say whatever you're doing, do it for the glory of God, that's not exactly what 1 Corinthians 10:31 means. To better understand 1 Corinthians 10:31, we need to understand chapters 8 through 11. Chapters 8 through 11 of 1 Corinthians are all dealing with the same issue. And in 1 Corinthians 8, Paul is addressing the fact that the Corinthians who have come out of paganism into salvation, away from idol worship into the worship of Jesus, that some of them are eating meat sacrificed to idols. Now, those who are mature in their faith in Corinth find no problem with it, and Paul actually tells them there's nothing wrong with eating meat sacrificed to an idol because an idol is nothing. The problem comes when the new believers, the new converts to faith in Corinth, are seeing the mature believers eat meat sacrificed to idols, and it is causing gospel confusion. It is causing the new believers to stumble in their faith and to misunderstand the gospel. And so Paul's going to encourage the Corinthian believers to be careful how they eat, what they drink, for the sake of the gospel. And he's going to appeal to them to lay down their right to eat meat sacrificed to idols for the sake of proclaiming Jesus to those who do not have faith and to those who are new in the faith. And so Paul is going to use chapter 9, all of chapter 9, to talk about how he laid down his rights for the sake of the gospel. He forsook the right to be married for the sake of the gospel. He didn't demand payment in the preaching of the gospel for the sake that the gospel would be proclaimed. He says, I became all things to all people. To the Jews, I acted like a Jew. To those who were under the law, as one who was under the law. To those who weren't under the law, as those not under the law, for their sake, that I might win some, that some might be saved. So Paul's mindset is the sake of the gospel. Chapter 10 then, Paul's going to remind the Corinthians of how the early Jews coming out of Egypt and going into the promised land, all the things that they did wrong, and how God poured out judgment on them. And he's going to tell them, down in 10:31, he's going to say, listen, so whether you eat or you drink, do it for the glory of God. If you're eating, if your freedom to eat meat sacrificed to an idol is causing the gospel, and those who don't know Christ or those who are new to Christ, if it's causing the gospel to become muddy, then depart from those things. Do these things for the sake of those who don't know Jesus and those who do know Jesus. And we always quit with verse 31, but we should really read verses 32 and verse 33, which say this. Listen to 1 Corinthians 10, 32 and 33, right? So he's already said, whether you eat or drink or whatever you do it for the glory of God. Verse 32, give no offense either to the Jew or the Greek or to the church of God. So give no offense to the unbelieving Jew, to the unbelieving Greek, or to the church of God. Just as I, Paul says, just as I also please all men in all things, not seeking my own profit, but the profit of the many, that they may be saved. So we see very clearly what Paul's aim here is. Paul's aim is the gospel. Paul's aim is salvation. So he says, whether you eat or you drink or whatever you do it all for the glory of God. He said earlier in chapter 8, I shared the verse below. He said earlier in chapter 8 that if you're causing your brother to stumble, then you're sinning against your brother and against Christ. I want to put this out there really clearly. The stumble here isn't, oh man, I'm offended that you ate meat sacrificed to an idol. Paul has in view chapters 8, 9, 10, and 11. In chapter 11, he's going to talk about taking the Lord's Supper, the kind of eating that they should partake of, that which proclaims Jesus, right, and not some false deity. And so one of the things that I want you to understand is when Paul says, be careful not to cause your brother to stumble, he's not saying, man, your brother might not like it if you eat meat sacrificed to an idol, so don't eat meat sacrificed to an idol. He's saying, don't eat meat sacrificed to an idol if it makes muddy the gospel. Salvation's in view. The gospel's in view. Not just someone's sensitive, everybody gets offended for everything anymore. So, I can't do this, I can't do that, it might offend someone. That's not what's at stake here. What's at stake is whatever you do, make sure that it's for the glory of God. Make sure that it correctly portrays the gospel, that it gives no offense to the unbelieving Jew, the unbelieving Gentile, to the church of God, so that they may be saved. So keep that in mind. Whether you eat or you drink or whatever you do it all for the glory of God. The context there is gospel. The context there is salvation. That the things you're doing should not unravel or muddy the gospel. They should rightly proclaim the gospel. And so it's a little bit bigger verse, I think, than we've previously taught it. I hope that brings a little bit of clarity to it. It's hard to do that in 5 minutes or less, but at least that should get us started on the conversation. Don't forget to like and to subscribe, share this video, and I'll see you soon.